Hi, it's Claudia from the Cloth Diaper Library. Today I'm going to show you how you can tell whether your PUL, your waterproof layer, is defective or if it's still good to use. PUL stands for polyurethane laminate, which means it's a polyurethane laminated onto a polyester. And that's what you see on the outside of most diapers. The lamination is usually done by heat transfer, so it's just pressed on with heat. Sometimes with chemicals. I think nowadays most diaper manufacturers use the heat method, but it can still look really, really different in different types of PUL. That sometimes it will look like it's broken, but it's not actually. It's just a type of PUL that looks like that. So we're going to look at lots and lots of different various types, so you can tell when a PUL is no longer going to keep the wetness in. So in order to see what PUL looks like when it's broken, cracked, or delaminated, you need to also look at some that isn't cracked, broken, or delaminated. So I've got a few different types, and because different factories just use different materials, they'll all look different, and you tend not to have the opportunity to see different kinds when you're just buying a couple of cloth diapers. So this one looks very bubbly, but actually is fine. This one's fine. And normally what you can do is you can stretch it a little bit and see if there's any cracks. And this one just stretches with my hands, so that's fine. I'll try and make this a bit brighter. Okay. This one is harder because it has two layers of polyester on this side and on this side, and in between is the plastic layer that's waterproof. So really the only thing you can do here is try and listen to it and feel it. So you see it kind of makes a bit of a crackling noise, and that's because actually the plastic in here has delaminated, so it's no longer attached to one of these layers. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's gone bad. You can kind of see a difference here. Can you see this is like bubbles where it's still attached, and here it's gone loose everywhere around here. Generally these kinds of setups are better because the actual plastic layer is not exposed, so it can't snag and make a hole. So it's more protected, but it's also then harder to see whether it is actually broken underneath or not. You'll only figure that out with trying. Or listening like this. Like, if this is delaminated, personally, I wouldn't buy something like that. Because it will eventually fail. Okay, and here's another one where you can see it looks different. You can do this test. Stretch it a bit. Not much happens. You can't see anything. So these are all the ones that are still in good condition. This is another kind. It's apple cheeks. That looks very bubbly. But there isn't actually anything wrong with that. This one's fine. This one, the PUL is actually pressed, so the laminate, which is just like the polyurethane, or the urethane laminate, is just molded onto a cotton instead of a polyester. So it looks a bit different. Again, you can stretch it. Can't see anything. The negative thing about these things is that as soon as this here gets wet, it will wick, and then the rest of it will get wet. So most manufacturers don't tend to do this anymore. I think this used to be a thing when PUL didn't come in all the different colors and patterns, so that when people wanted a specific pattern, they had to just put cotton over. And this is a different kind that you'll mostly find with cushies. It's very thin. It almost feels like there isn't a layer, but it is there. It's a little bit shiny. You can kind of see it there. It's not stretchy, this material, at all. And as long as you can still feel that film, and it looks different than this side, this wasn't, it's more matte, then it's still good. And then just another one. This is the cat opening the door, coming in. She never closes it behind her. And then sometimes what you can see, which isn't a fault or doesn't mean that it leaks, is you have little inclusions, little fibers. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little black fiber right there. Doesn't mean anything. It's just that this made its way in between the two layers when it was being pressed. Some brands are better at this than others to avoid that, but it doesn't mean that it's got a hole. So now let's look at some PUL that is no longer good. Okay, so this one, for example, looks fine. It's just a bit crinkly, but as soon as you pull it, you can see little cracks appear, and you can actually see that's where it does have little cracks, crevices almost, little holes, and that's where it'll leak. And this one is another way of it breaking. It delaminates, so the urethane, where it was pressed on, it just loosens, and then you can almost have two layers. So one is just that actual plasticky layer, thin layer, and one is the polyester. You do sometimes see these pulls in fabric, often with Velcro diapers, because the Velcro just catches it. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a hole and that it's no longer waterproof. You really need to look at this side. And here on this side, it has delaminated. You don't even need to pull it to see that. You can just see it sort of sticks together. And then you've got some of these, you can maybe see that it has almost like someone scratched it. It looks like it's been scratched. I believe, and when you pull it, you can see it even more. I believe this is from putting it in the dryer and it hitting, these spots hitting the hot dryer, parts of the dryer, and that's where it will just come off and flake off almost. Here's another one. Glow bug. If you're ever in the market for a used diaper, I would be very careful with them. Almost every glow bug I've received as a donation has had some either relaxed elastics or delamination. So you can see here again, here it's come off completely. Here you can see it's delaminated. It's another glow bug. Sometimes it happens near where the elastics used to be. So here. And I think there's just a lot of movement there so that it weakens the material and it eventually just comes loose. You can also tell that this film is really thin and a lot thinner than with other diaper brands. It's really, really thin. Something you don't see often is when you have minky. So minky is a material, it's kind of like a fleece, but it's very soft. It's also polyester. Tends to be more robust with PUL for some reason. I think it's just because it's thicker. This one actually did fail. You can see there. It just sort of has a break, which breaks. This one is one where it's harder to tell. So this one again is a polyester knit on both sides. You can't actually see the urethane layer, but you can hear what's going on there. And when you hold it up to the light, you can see it a little bit, maybe not in this video, but when you stretch it, you can kind of hear it, and you can see when you hold it in the light that there's a big hole where there should be something. It just looks different. Yeah, you can see it maybe here a little bit. And like here, there's a line. The PUL used to be. But listening to this sort of crinkly noise should really give it away. Here's a black PUL, looks fine, but as soon as you pull it, you can see sort of holes appearing. Here's another one. You can almost already see like tiny little pulls. It just comes apart. This one is harder to see. It's actually fine this way. Sometimes they do discolor a fair bit, but this actually has a scrape right there. Must have snagged on something maybe. And then you have manufacturers like Motherese use a really thick one. This is actually a version that's fine. There's nothing wrong with this one. So this is what it looks like normally. You can also stretch that a little bit. It's much thicker. Doesn't bubble at all, even when it's broken. But they do discolor sometimes, and that can sometimes be a hint. So this one used to be white, and it's a sort of brownish color. And you can see when you stretch this one, lots and lots of tiny little cracks. And in parts it's still okay. Sometimes I think that happens when you just store them wrong. Too tightly together and no airflow, then it really can degrade the components in there. And yeah, with this one you can also tell on here, just to go back to this gray one, it obviously had a crack in the middle, but also here you can see the PUL layer is delaminated. It's all sort of bubbly. This isn't actually a big deal. This is the second layer anyway, and there's no holes in this. Right, it's still waterproof, it's just not attached to that layer underneath anymore. But eventually this will get a hole in it. It'll just snag in the wash or something. So I wouldn't buy that if you saw that secondhand. And here's another glow bug, just to confirm that that's what happens. It's sort of, when it delaminates, it sort of pulls, the plastic gets smaller, especially if you have it in a hot wash or in the dryer, and it pulls together, and then it looks like puckered on this side. So if you have an all-in-one, for example, and you can't see that side, you can see these little puckers here. And when you pull them apart, you can hear crinkling. So that's a big sign. This one, for example, is quite a rare one, green line diaper. I think there some kind of a cotton or different kind of synthetic material, and then the PULs on this side. And you can sort of see it starts bubbling up here. This kind of looks not as smooth as over here. So let's see and look inside and see if we can confirm that. And yes, it has come off. It's no longer attached. See that? But that will still be waterproof. It just doesn't look as nice. Would I buy that? Probably not, because it will eventually fail. Right, so hopefully this has given you a really good overview of the different types of PUL and what they look like when they're good and when they're no longer useful and waterproof. Let us know in the comments your experiences with PUL. Maybe you've got some tricks on how to tell whether it's good or bad. That would be fab. Let's learn from each other. Right, if you found this video helpful, go check out our channel, subscribe. We'll bring you lots more cloth diaper content. We've got fit videos, problems and solutions, and lots of other cloth diapery stuff.